Greetings from Cheating Story Lab. Comment below to share your viewing location. Remember that feeling when it seems as if victory is yours when justice finally prevails and everything appears right in the world? That sensation struck me precisely 3 months back. I was exiting the courthouse, divorce papers in tow, a signed custody agreement, and my ex-wife Victoria receiving her due punishment at last. Yet, triumph can sometimes be the start of losing what truly matters. Let me transport you to the genesis of this tale, for grasping Victoria is essential to comprehending how convoluted this entire scenario became. 8 years ago, Victoria and I crossed paths at a corporate law gathering in Chicago. She was intelligent, driven, and possessed an uncanny ability to make one feel uniquely important. As a thriving financial consultant, I found myself paired with a rising star at a renowned legal firm. We seemed like the epitome of a powerful duo. In our 4th year of marriage, we welcomed twin sons, Connor and Blake, who are now 6 years old. For the initial years, everything appeared idyllic from an external perspective: the suburban house, thriving careers, lovely children. We possessed the American dream. However, Victoria's professional ambitions gradually took over her life. She worked 18-hour days, missed school plays, overlooked birthdays, and when she was home, she either immersed herself in her phone or treated our residence as a temporary lodging. The hidden troubles surfaced approximately 2 years ago. Victoria's promotion to senior partner led to longer working hours, frequent travel. But it also brought about something else: an extramarital affair with her colleague Trevor Hartman. Trevor was married and had his own children, yet this fact did not deter either of them. I discovered the truth in the way most betrayed spouses do, through a chain of untruths that didn't align. Undisclosed meetings about which her assistant held no knowledge. Business trips to cities where her firm had no clients. Charges from romantic restaurants, despite her claims of working through lunch hours, led to my suspicion. This was verified when I employed private investigator Carmen Rodriguez. She was meticulous, proficient, and regrettably adept at her role. The photographs were shocking. Victoria and Trevor were spotted at expensive hotels, dining privately in secluded restaurants, and even caught kissing in parking garages. The most painful aspect was observing her contentment with him, a smile she once reserved for me when I held significance. Confronted with the evidence, Victoria didn't deny it, but instead looked at me with an unfamiliar coldness and said, "What did you expect? You're comfortable, routine, and frankly uneventful. Trevor stimulates me intellectually and professionally. He appreciates my aspirations." This dialogue took place on a Tuesday night when the children were asleep. By Thursday, Victoria had relocated to Trevor's downtown condo. By Friday, I delivered divorce documents to her workplace with copies distributed to all partners at her firm, including Jessica, Trevor's wife. The ensuing legal battle was fierce. Victoria engaged one of the state's costliest divorce lawyers, believing her legal acumen would tip the scales in her favor. She demanded half of everything, including my premarital consulting business. She also sought primary custody of our sons, alleging my instability and vengefulness for revealing her affair. However, Victoria committed a strategic blunder. She underestimated the amount of evidence I had amassed and the damaging impact her affair would have on family court judgments. My attorney, Patricia Sullivan, was a seasoned family law expert well-versed in underhanded tactics. Sullivan meticulously constructed a case demonstrating Victoria's recurring prioritization of her career and affair over our children's welfare. We experienced instances of missed parent-teacher meetings, skipped medical appointments, and failed school appearances by Victoria, despite her last-minute text messages stating she couldn't attend. Testimonies from babysitters, neighbors, and even Connor's teacher confirmed the boys' queries about their mother's whereabouts. The custody evaluation proved detrimental to Victoria's case. Dr. Michelle Foster, the court-appointed psychologist, interviewed everyone, me, Victoria, the boys, some extended family, and friends over several weeks. Her report portrayed a mother who was physically present but emotionally absent, while I had been compensating for her neglect for years. During a challenging deposition, Victoria's attorney attempted to depict me as domineering and deceitful, insinuating that I aimed to alienate the children from their mother. However, playing my conversations with the boys in court had disastrous results. The recordings demonstrated me repeatedly advocating for the boys to love their mother, making allowances for her absences, and attempting to preserve their relationship with her even during divorce proceedings. The trial ran for 3 weeks. Every day, I found myself in that courtroom as Victoria's life, painstakingly constructed, crumbled bit by bit. Trevor, her affair partner, was compelled to testify, which ultimately led to the end of his marriage and tarnished his reputation at their law firm. Even Victoria's partners attested to her unpredictable behavior and missed deadlines during the affair. The Honorable Margaret Chen, known for her stern but fair judgment, listened as Victoria's lawyer made one last effort to portray me as the antagonist. Yet, Judge Chen had already witnessed all the evidence and read Dr. In the trial, Foster monitored Victoria's actions and responses. When Judge Chen announced the verdict, it surpassed my expectations. The custody of Connor and Blake was granted primarily to me both physically and legally. Until she completes parenting classes and counseling, Victoria will be permitted supervised visitation every other weekend. I retained the house, business, and majority of our belongings. Judge Chen ordered Victoria to pay child support, which added a humiliating aspect considering her initial request for primary custody due to financial matters. The instant Judge Chen's gavel struck, a strong feeling of relief and validation washed over me. Stone-faced, Victoria sat at the defendant's table with her pricey attorney frantically whispering in her ear. I had won everything. Justice was served. My boys would be secure under my care, and Victoria will have to confront the ramifications of her decisions. On that courtroom day, I felt as if a weight had been lifted from me for months. Patricia greeted me with a handshake and offered congratulations on the verdict. My sons were oblivious at school that their lives had just been significantly altered by the new custody agreement I was planning to discuss with them later. I was about to reach my car in the courthouse parking lot when someone called out my name. "Anderson, Anderson, wait up!" It was Bailiff Williams approaching me hastily. Throughout our trial, Bailiff Williams had been present and appeared as a respectable, professional individual who might have witnessed numerous messy divorces unfold in Judge Chen's courtroom. "Mr. Anderson, I must talk to you immediately," he said, slightly out of breath. "There's a problem. There's been a development." My initial assumption was that Victoria appeared to be creating a disturbance at the courthouse, possibly protesting the verdict or seeking a private audience with Judge Chen. From my experience with her during the divorce, I wasn't surprised she didn't handle defeat gracefully. "What sort of predicament?" I inquired, feeling my triumphant elation diminish. Bailiff Williams scanned the parking lot before moving closer to me. "Sir, your former spouse departed from the courthouse around 20 minutes ago," I interjected. "But prior to her departure, she made some calls. As part of the court's usual protocol in high-conflict custody cases, we've been keeping tabs on her communications. This was unexpected information. I knew the court took extra measures in acrimonious divorces, but I hadn't realized they were actually tracking Victoria's communications. What kind of calls?" I asked, though a part of me was already apprehensive about the reply. "Sir," he replied, "the nature of those calls remains unclear. I phoned Sister Linda expecting she'd fetch the boys from school and bring them home today. However, things didn't go as planned. I was anticipating Connor and Blake at Riverside Elementary until 3:30, followed by Linda driving them here for our dinner together, where I intended to delicately break the news about the new custody arrangement." "Why isn't that what happened?" inquired Bailiff Williams, glancing at his watch. It was already 4:15 p.m. and 45 minutes had passed since school dismissal. "Mr. Anderson," he said, "Linda picked up the boys but failed to bring them to your house. Our court security team has been attempting to contact her, but her phone is going straight to voicemail. We've also been unable to locate your ex-wife. She isn't at her apartment, her office, or among her known acquaintances. The parking lot appeared to sway." "What do you mean she's not here?" I held onto my car for balance. "Are your children missing?" was the query posed to me. "We must tread carefully in this situation," I was warned. "It could be a simple misunderstanding. Perhaps a family member took them somewhere without considering informing you. However, given the recent custody ruling and your ex-wife's response, it's not unreasonable to think otherwise." As Victoria lost everything in that courtroom, she now sought to inflict the greatest pain upon me, my boys. "What are we doing to locate them?" I demanded emphatically. My voice grew louder, drawing attention from others in the parking lot. "Steps have already been taken. The local police have been contacted, and an Amber Alert has been activated. Detective Lisa Morrison from the Family Crimes Unit is en route to the school to question staff and examine security footage. It's crucial that you return inside so we can strategize our search efforts." Stepping once more into the courthouse felt like stepping into a living nightmare. Only an hour prior, I was the victorious one, leaving with all that I desired. Now, however, I found myself a terrified father, grappling with the reality of my children's abduction at the hands of their own mother. "Detective Morrison, a petite woman with graying hair and piercing eyes, exhibited an intensity that suggested she was no stranger to cases involving parental abductions. Without delay, she began querying pertinent questions. "Mr. Anderson, does your ex-wife have any family residing in other states? Anyone who could potentially aid her in concealing the children?" Barely able to focus due to the encroaching panic, I endeavored to respond thoughtfully. Her sister Linda undoubtedly. Her parents were settled in Arizona. Her brother lived in Texas, but they weren't close. Her aunt resided in Toronto, Canada. What about financial resources? Credit cards, bank accounts, access to cash. She was a lawyer, earning a substantial income, but the majority of our joint accounts had been frozen during the divorce proceedings. She possesses her own checking account and credit cards, yet I'm unaware of the amount of cash she can withdraw. Detective Morrison jotted down information swiftly. Regarding Trevor Hartman, her alleged lover, would he aid her? I'm skeptical. His personal divorce is in disarray due to the affair, with his ex-wife Jessica seeking all assets. It seems unlikely that Trevor could assist Victoria in fleeing with my children. For the subsequent 2 hours, Detective Morrison collaborated with various organizations while I remained in a compact conference room, oscillating between dread and fury. How did Victoria transition from losing everything to seemingly regaining control at 6:03 p.m.? Detective Morrison returned with updates. "We've examined the school surveillance footage," she stated. 3:25 p.m., Linda Hoffman collected Connor and Blake as arranged, but deviated from the planned route, moving towards I-75 heading north, possibly toward Michigan. Her vehicle has been tracked on traffic cameras. The destination could be Detroit, where Linda has a friend named Rachel Murphy. The Michigan State Police are attempting to locate Linda's vehicle. At 7:45 p.m., they found her car at a gas station outside Detroit, but only Linda was present in the vehicle. I expressed concern when Detective Morrison shared this information, asking, "Where are my boys?" Linda remains silent and has requested a lawyer. However, Detective Morrison believes she knows where Victoria and the children might be. She displayed on her phone a series of text messages. A warrant was obtained for Victoria's phone records. At 4:50 p.m., she apparently texted someone named M. Package delivered securely, we moved to Plan B. Identified Monica Stevens as Victoria's ex-colleague, now employed at an international law firm in multiple countries. The realization struck like a blow. "Do you think Victoria intends to transport my sons overseas? It's a scenario we must examine seriously. With Monica Stevens' firm having offices in London, Frankfurt, and Toronto, it increases the difficulty of retrieving the children if they are smuggled across an international border." At 9:15 p.m., our worst suspicions were confirmed. Victoria's credit card was used to purchase 3 airline tickets, 2 for children and 1 for an adult on a late-night flight from Detroit to Toronto. The flight was due at 11:45 p.m. "We must prevent that flight," I stated, causing my coffee cup to overturn in the process. "We're trying," Detective Morrison responded. "However, international flights bring additional complexities. I'm working with Canadian authorities, but if Victoria boards that plane with the boys, it escalates into an international custody battle." The ensuing 3 hours were the most agonizing of my life. Detective Morrison kept me informed as law enforcement units on both sides of the border hunted for Victoria and the children. At 11:30 p.m., we learned that Detroit airport security had been alerted and was scouring the international terminal. At 11:52 p.m., Detective Morrison's phone rang. She answered promptly, listened for roughly 30 seconds before hanging up, her face bearing a grim expression. The flight took off on schedule. Victoria and the boys were not listed as passengers. A part of me felt relieved that they weren't heading to Canada, but another part understood that this meant we had no clue about their whereabouts. "She's cunning," Detective Morrison remarked. "She used the flight booking as a decoy while she vanished elsewhere entirely." It was at that moment I realized how mistaken I had been about Victoria's intellect. Despite her loss in the custody battle, she had anticipated this scenario. The airline tickets were a ruse. Linda served as a distraction while our focus was diverted towards Detroit and the Canadian border. In reality, Victoria had taken my sons to an unknown location. At 2:30 a.m., Detective Morrison received a call that altered everything. "Mr. Anderson," she said after hanging up, "we've just traced Victoria's cell phone signal. She's not in Michigan or Canada. She's in Florida." "Florida," the detective replied. "Orlando, to be precise." Her phone was detected connecting to a cell tower near Disney World less than an hour ago. The bitter irony wasn't missed. Victoria had kidnapped my children and brought them to the most enchanting place on earth. Connor and Blake likely believed they were embarking on a surprise trip with their mother. They remained blissfully unaware that they had been abducted, unaware of their father's desperate search for them, unaware that their mother had just destroyed any possibility of a normal relationship between both parents. Have we contacted Orlando police? Yes, they're collaborating with Disney Property Hotel Security and tracking credit card activity. The positive aspect is that Disney World has an advanced security system, making it relatively simple to locate someone. At 4:45 a.m., we received the anticipated call. "We found them," Detective Morrison stated. Victoria registered at the Grand Floridian Resort using her maiden name, Victoria Hartwell. Currently, hotel security is monitoring her whereabouts. The boys are safe. Initially, relief flooded in, but it was swiftly replaced by fury. Victoria subjected Connor and Blake to a harrowing ordeal, caused them distress by abducting them from their familiar surroundings, all due to her refusal to accept the court's decision. What's the next move? Orlando police and hotel security are cooperating to securely retrieve the children. Victoria faces charges for parental kidnapping, disregarding court orders, and potential federal offenses involving interstate travel. Temporarily, the boys will be in protective custody until you can retrieve them. By 8 a.m. that day, I was on a flight to Orlando. Detective Morrison phoned during the flight to brief me about Victoria's arrest. He stated she didn't resist when the Orlando police approached her at the hotel. However, there's more, Mr. Anderson. When they arrested her, Victoria had already booked another flight, this one to London, scheduled for the following morning. She intended to take the boys to England. The full extent of Victoria's plan was surfacing. It wasn't a hasty decision made after losing in court. Instead, she had been preparing this scheme for weeks, possibly months. The Disney trip was merely a pit stop while arranging international transportation. Quickly locating her wasn't possible, otherwise my sons might have embarked on a journey to Europe. Retrieving them would have required prolonged international legal processes. Upon seeing Connor and Blake at the Orlando police station, they raced towards me with expressions of excitement and bewilderment. "Dad," Connor called out, "we went to Disney World. Tommy said it was a surprise." Blake, more perceptive among the twins, seemed worried. "Dad, why are there policemen here? Did we do something wrong?" I knelt down to embrace both boys, recognizing that this moment would shape their recollection of this distressing day. I could either intensify their confusion and dread, or guide them in understanding the situation without vilifying their mother while safeguarding them from future occurrences. "You've done nothing wrong at all," I explained to them. Grown-ups make errors when they are scared or upset. Initially, Mom intended to pick you up from school, but opted instead to whisk you off to Disney World without informing Dad about the plan. This left me anxious as I was unaware of your whereabouts. Connor listened gravely, explaining that they had suggested calling me, but were told it was a surprise, and they needed to wait. Mom appeared somber, Blake added, and she seemed tearful the previous night when we assumed she was asleep. Learning that Victoria had been crying only intensified my distress. Despite her actions causing harm to our family, infidelity, deceit, and abduction included, she is still the mother of my children. She remains the woman I loved for 6 years, and now she finds herself in a jail cell, facing severe legal charges. The journey home was challenging. Connor and Blake were fatigued, perplexed, and began to ask tougher questions regarding Mom's absence and lengthy conversations with police officers. Detective Morrison greeted us at the airport with additional details regarding Victoria's predicament. She has been accused of parental kidnapping, breaching court orders, and transporting minors across states without permission. As we traversed the terminal, she elaborated on these charges. Her bail hearing is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Her lawyer will argue that, as the boys' mother, she had a right to travel with them. However, considering the timing and evidence suggesting premeditation, it seems unlikely she'll be granted bail. As for future custody arrangements, Judge Chen may find this incident highly relevant. It appears Victoria's supervised visitation privileges will likely be terminated temporarily, at least for now. She might be required to undergo extensive counseling and parenting courses before being permitted any contact with the boys again. Further details about Victoria's scheme emerged during her criminal trial over the ensuing weeks. Victoria had clandestinely transferred funds into foreign bank accounts, acquired false identity papers, and collaborated with Monica Stevens to secure permanent residency in England as part of a plan to keep Connor and Blake distant permanently. The Disney World trip marked the initial stage of this relocation scheme. Eventually, Victoria admitted guilt to lesser charges in exchange for revealing the scope of her planning and implicating others. Monica Stevens was apprehended for conspiracy, while Linda received probation for her part in the initial kidnapping. In a separate hearing, Judge Chen addressed Victoria's breach of the custody order. Following a thorough examination of all the evidence, including testimonies from the boys' therapists about the psychological harm caused by the abduction, Judge Chen revoked Victoria's parental rights entirely. Judge Chen declared during the final hearing that Anderson's actions showed a total disregard for her children's well-being and their bond with their father. She prioritized revenge over the emotional security of Connor and Blake, an action this court will not tolerate. The judge warned against continuing to endanger these children. Throughout the hearing, Victoria remained silent. Her high-priced lawyer had deserted her due to unpaid fees from jail, while her court-appointed attorney presented little defense. Once a successful lawyer, commanding respect in courtrooms, Victoria is now a convicted felon who has lost her children, career, and freedom. 6 months after the dreadful day when she believed she had secured everything, Connor and Blake are flourishing. They're undergoing therapy to cope with the trauma of being abducted by their mother, but they're resourceful kids supported by love and stability. 18 months confined in a minimum security institution is where Victoria finds herself. Occasionally, she pens letters, which I scrutinize before deciding whether they're suitable for the boys, considering their content and emotional maturity. Some of these letters exhibit sincere regret and convey love towards Connor and Blake. However, others harbor resentment and accuse me of wrecking their family. The irony lies in the fact that if Victoria had accepted the court-ordered custody arrangement, she would still be a part of her sons' lives. She would have seen them every other weekend, during school vacations, and had an opportunity to mend their bond. Alas, her thirst for revenge and power led to her losing everything. The scene in the courthouse parking lot where Bailiff Williams handed me that urgent message continues to haunt my thoughts. In that very moment, what could have been a triumph turned into a nightmare, yet it also exposed Victoria's unwavering capacity to inflict pain on our children for her own gain. Connor and Blake occasionally inquire about their mother, and I consistently share the truth in a way suitable for their age. I clarify that Mommy took some extremely poor decisions which caused pain to those she cared about, and that she's striving to learn how to make better ones. I desire them not to harbor hatred towards her, but also to comprehend that her actions were wrong. The house seems altered now. It's less noisy in certain aspects, yet more serene. There's no stress, no tiptoeing around, no curiosity about what Victoria might be doing when she says she's working late. Connor and Blake have acclimated to their new routine, and they appear happier and more confident than during the tumultuous final years of my marriage with Victoria. At times, I ponder over how things could have been different if I had approached Victoria's affair differently. If I had opted for counseling rather than divorce, if I had been more open to saving our marriage instead of terminating it. Yet I am reminded of her frosty demeanor when she labeled me dull and unsurprising, her preference for Trevor over our offspring, and her readiness to wound me by distressing Connor and Blake. The fact is, Victoria had already decided on her actions before my turn arrived. She opted for Trevor instead of our family, prioritized career above children, and eventually she picked revenge over their welfare. I merely responded to decisions already taken. In hindsight, the instant I believed I had secured everything served as both the peak and the trough of this entire ordeal. It was the best because it assured Connor and Blake's safety with me, yet it provoked Victoria's last-ditch attempt that endangered our children. However, we persevered. The three of us have grown stronger, more connected, and increasingly aware of the security and affection that bind us together. Victoria forfeited everything due to her unwillingness to concede that she couldn't dictate everyone and every situation around her. Her relentless pursuit of victory ensured she would lose what truly mattered. This is the crucial insight gained. At times, victory involves recognizing when to concede defeat and progressing with dignity. Victoria failed to grasp this lesson, which resulted in her losing everything dearest to her. If you're facing a similar predicament, bear in mind that prioritizing your children's welfare surpasses the need to triumph over an ex-spouse. Channel your efforts towards being the most effective parent possible, record all occurrences, and trust that the judicial system will eventually acknowledge what is beneficial for your children. And if someone you hold dear is battling a contentious divorce or custody dispute, encourage them to seek not only legal advice, but also emotional assistance to manage their rage and sorrow healthily. Victoria's tale serves as a warning of the harmful consequences when feelings become destructive. As I narrate this narrative, Connor and Blake are peacefully slumbering upstairs. The following day is Saturday, implying soccer training for Connor and art lessons for Blake. This regular weekend routine, though mundane, was unattainable 6 months ago due to our lives being dictated by custody arrangements and monitored visits. At times, the most significant triumph lies in living in tranquility. Thank you for tuning into my story. If you've reached this point, don't forget to click that subscribe button and share your location in the comments below. Your backing is crucial for this channel, and by sharing these stories, others facing similar circumstances can realize they aren't alone. Until our next encounter, take care of yourself and those you cherish.